Survival horror is a genre of video games that has always intrigued me ever since I was a young child who had just discovered what RPG stood for. Series like Project Zero, Silent Hill, Dead Space, Clock Tower to name a few. I was too young to play those as I was a staunch believer in upholding PEGI age ratings. If I even looked at an 18+ game, the police would immediately arrive at my house and send me to jail forever. But that didn't stop me browsing their wikis for hours on end. Back when wiki sites were actually readable, Zero Wiki, you are our last living hope. And watching playthroughs on YouTube while my sister played Little Big Planet in the background. What a time in our lives. Side note, this means that whenever I hear the Little Big Planet 2 theme, my brain associates it with Project Zero 2, specifically the ghost girl that hides under the stairs in the Tachibana house. Rest in peace, Queen. But now that I'm older, wiser, and have an internet connection higher than when I had to watch YouTube videos in 144p, I have the chance to play those games I always wanted to, and can see if they were as good as I always wanted them to be. And I thought, hey, why not document the experience for people to see me be bad at video games? So here we are, seeing the product of childhood unsupervised internet access. And to start it all off, we'll be looking at a game that is older than me, Resident Evil for the PS1, released in August 1996 in Europe. I played the director's cut version. No, not that one, because I knew nothing about the version differences and it was the most accessible to me at the time. And without further ado, we'll jump right into my experience with this game. Please be warned, there will be spoilers throughout for both scenarios.
Resident Evil.
The first thing we see when we boot up the game is the Capcom logo. Probably the scariest thing I could have expected to see, and integrated by the title screen. I actually quite like this. The little live action sequence with the screen really set up the tone the game's going for. Creepy, but also a little cheesy. After selecting a difficulty, I picked standard because I've never played before and I don't want to get stuck. We get the iconic Resident Evil voice and are prompted to select a campaign. At first, I thought that this choice was simply another difficulty select, with Chris being harder, but after playing both, I found it's actually more complicated than that, but I went with Chris Redfield first since that's my man right there. Next we get the intro cutscene. Here, through a narration and various newspaper clippings, we find out there's something weird going on in Raccoon City, with various people getting attacked, murdered and dismembered, alongside some monster sightings in a nearby forest, and the STARS Bravo team has been sent to find out what's going on. When contact was lost with Bravo team, Alpha team, our protagonist, was sent to investigate. This is where the live action cutscene starts and it is perfection. A black and white video of some people who may have never acted in their lives, looking over a field at something we aren't allowed to see, but have to assume it's the bodies of the Bravo team. A member of the team finds a gun lying on the ground and shouts at the other members, which is the complete opposite of what to do in this situation, and finds that the gun still has a hand attached to it. He screams and is attacked by dogs, which are shown between shots via a very well constructed mask. Rip to Joseph. The rest of the gang turn and run, shooting back at the dogs, and stop to watch the helicopter pilot just leave them behind. What the hell, Brad? The survivors then run towards the nearby mansion to escape, where we find out nobody knows where Barry is, and then we get some character intros. This is honestly my favourite part. The short clips are great for showing the characters' personalities in a short period of time. Chris is really cool and shoots guns. Jill has a gun. Barry is hot. Barry, if you're listening, I'm free on Thursday night when I'm free on Thursday. Please, when I'm free. Please, Barry. Wesker cares about his appearance in her, and Rebecca wasn't in that first cutscene. Who is this?
Hello, what about me?
No, you're not in this episode.
But truly, I very much enjoyed the intro. It feels very much a product of its time, but as someone who grew up during that time, it felt very at home to me, and as I said before, it sets the tone of the game well. Scary and creepy, but also with a touch of cheese. Since writing this script, I've actually found that this version of the intro cutscene is a censored version of the one found in the PC release, which features shots of mutilated bodies instead of newspaper clippings, shows the stump on the end of the hand Joseph picks up, shows the dogs get shot and squirt blood, and also shows Joseph actually attacked in full colour. Nice. Go check it out if you want. Anyway, after this we open into the game proper. Chris, Jill and Wesker are in the main hall of the mansion, since apparently Barry got lost in the last 5 seconds. He was right there in the cutscene. This is our first introduction to the game's voice acting, and...
Where's Barry?
Well, I'm sorry, but he's probably...
No.
This game does indeed have voice acting. While it's not the best performance in the world, the cast does have their moments later on in the game, and honestly, with the script they were given, I don't think there's much more they could have done. Also, there's no subtitles, that would have been nice. The gang mourns the loss of Barry since he's obviously definitely dead when they hear a gunshot from across the room. Chris offers to investigate, and Jill wishes him well. Chris enters the dining room and we finally gain control. As with all great PS1 horror games, this game uses tank controls, meaning that pressing up or down will move your character forwards or backwards, and the left or right buttons will rotate your character left or right. This can take some getting used to, and did cause me to get caught on some objects at times, and lead to a premature death, but for this style of game it's the best choice, especially with the fixed camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds, a staple of the PS1 era. We also get a look at the inventory screen, Chris having only 6 inventory slots and currently carrying a knife and a first aid spray. Why don't you have a gun, Chris? You're a special agent. What's going on here? Your character's health is also shown by the heart rate monitor in the bottom left, next to a nice little photo of them. Oh, that's nice. The monitor will change colour depending on remaining health, changing from green to orange, and then to red, and then to dead. We can also check the map and any files we pick up from here, but we don't have any yet, so we don't and simply move on. Also, this is the loudest clock on Earth, oh my god. After I pick up an emblem I have absolutely no business having in my inventory yet, and fighting with the controls, we move on to the next room. A long hallway with a blind turn at one end, and after going around the corner we get a cutscene of a white, bald and very dry looking person gnawing on a corpse. Person turns around and reveals himself as a zombie. This is a pretty neat cutscene, which was also altered in this release, as the original version had an additional part of the zombie dropping the detached head of the person they were eating. Gross. I can see this scene being horrifying for someone back then, especially back when it was released, but I just find it creepy more than anything. Now, this is our first encounter with an enemy, and I didn't know any better at this point, so I tried to kill it with the knife. The knife sucks. Just a big stinky waste of inventory space. I did eventually kill the zombie, but not until after I wasted my first aid spray and had no health left. Do not do this. It's not worth it, and it just makes the beginning of the game even harder. Turns out that this corpse is Kenneth from the Bravo team, confirming our worst fears that the Bravo team is all just completely ruined. Sad. Now all we can do is return to the main hall to report our findings, since all the other doors are locked. If you examine Kenneth's corpse before you leave, you can actually find 2 clips inside of him. Fun tip from me there, very useful. We return to the main hall to find Jill and Wesker have left and are nowhere to be found, and then find Jill's gun on the ground, a Beretta. This concerns Chris, and now we're open to explore the mansion to try and find them. Now that we have more freedom, we can start to make our way through the various rooms, solving puzzles and avoiding death. The basic gameplay loop is essentially discovering rooms that are open, solving puzzles within them in order to obtain keys and other items that help to either open additional rooms or solve puzzles in other open rooms, which in turn leads to more keys and more puzzles. These can also lead to new guns and more ammo, both of which are incredibly useful and just as important to survival and progression. The puzzles involve using items such as lighters to set fires and light up rooms, or pressing switches to open panels or change the environment in some way, moving around blocks and stairs to reach new areas or press switches, or using files to extract information to be used in a different area. I honestly don't think there was a puzzle that I didn't enjoy solving, and there also weren't any that stumped me for longer than a few minutes, so I didn't personally mind solving them. One useful thing is that any doors that are locked will inform you of what key is needed to open them in the vast majority of cases. For example, one of the doors in the main hall has a carving of armor, meaning that you needed to find a key with armor on it, which is a very intuitive design. After exploring the open rooms on the ground floor and finding the map, we moved to the first floor, and this is where I started having severe difficulties. I had no healing items, no health, no idea where I was going, and only 15 bullets. However, I managed to make it to the storage room, where the chemical and our first storage box is. These boxes allow you to store away any items that you no longer need, such as weapons and ammo you aren't using, or puzzle items you don't need at that moment. Thankfully, all of these boxes are linked magically, so you don't need to remember where exactly you stored a particular item. There's also a typewriter, which allows you to save your game, but you have to use up an ink ribbon to do so, meaning that saving your game has become a limited resource and so must be rationed. And as dying brings you straight back to the title screen, this is a big decision to be made, especially for someone who's unfamiliar with the game. Will you save to prevent yourself having to play a certain section again, or conserve your ribbons for a later point in which you might need them more? Shortly after this, I discovered that once a zombie has been killed, it will not respawn, which was very reassuring to hear as I had literally 2 bullets left at this stage. I then died several times trying to get to the door at the bottom of the hall, which led to a locked door and a single green herb. Great. At least I managed to find the file telling me what herbs do. Green herbs heal, blue herbs cure poison, and red herbs triple the effect of a herb mixed with it. At this point, I decided to try and explore a different corridor. As soon as I entered the room, the foreboding music instantly had me on edge. I feel like the music in this game is expertly used to set the tone on various occasions, either giving a creepy feeling when entering certain rooms, or the feeling of safety when entering a safe room, such as the storeroom or the serum room. The giant blot of human blood on the wall also certainly did not help the foreboding feeling, which led to me immediately turning around as soon as I entered the balcony and heard the crows, something which I did at various stages throughout the game. This is one reason why I didn't mind the door loading screens as much as I thought I would, as they serve as an increase in tension, since the change in music between rooms kicks in just as the door is opened in the animation. I think it's a neat touch. Anyway, I died in the upstairs of the dining room again. After several more failed attempts, I decided to go into the balcony, where you find Forrest, who has been pecked to death by evil crows. Disgusting. And I took his clip. And then I died. If you don't actually inspect Forrest's body and just take the clip, the crows won't actually attack you, which is fun and very useful information, thanks GameFAQs. Eventually, after what seemed like hours, I finally managed to make my way to the serum room, where Chris immediately gets sprayed in the face with an unknown substance by Rebecca. Chris laughs it off, though I would have a few more questions. And honestly, what a bad start to a new job for Rebecca. Only 1 month in, and she's already been put into a bioterrorist incident like this, oh god. Here we find the sword key, opening up the mansion a bit, and Rebecca asks if she can come with us. Apparently this decision affects other events throughout the game, including the ending, but I didn't know this at the time, so I just asked her to come with us. Strength in numbers and all that, and also if I left her there, I just assumed that we would come back later and she'd be dead and mutilated and all that. But then she says she needs to prepare something and just stays there. Okay, why'd you ask then, weirdo? Around the corner is one of the more infamous rooms in this game, one that I have actually heard about previously, the Keeper's Room. Inside is a desk with a book on top, and when Chris interacts with it, the wardrobe behind him opens up, and its zombie jump scares him. Though it didn't get me, because that door was rendered differently to the background, you can't fool me. Upon opening the diary, the keeper writes about his work at the mansion. Starts off innocently with a game of poker with some researchers, but then starts to talk about the new monster he has to look after, a gorilla without skin, and they start to detail what seems to be a virus breakout, being made to wear a spacesuit, starting to feel various itchy symptoms, and letting a couple of dogs escape. Nice going. As the diary progresses, the detail in the writing decreases, with the keeper using more simple language and having poorer grammar, finally ending with just 2 words: itchy, tasty. I think this diary is a very good example of the world building of this game. It detailed events that happened within the mansion, including the virus breakout and the steps the higher-ups took to contain it, including forbidding the workers from leaving the premises, and even shooting any that tried to escape. I also don't believe that any of them expected the so-called spacesuits to actually prevent the spreading of the virus, but that they just did it to save face. But that might be my prejudice against the ruling class talking, I don't know. After this, we ended up in a lovely little garden that had a giant plant that probably would have killed us if I let it, so we had to kill it with the chemical and the water supply. Chris clearly has no love for the environment. Here we find a large amount of red and green herbs, thank God, and the armor key. Oh god, now I have 2 keys, and they take up an inventory space each. I didn't want to store either of them, since what if I needed one of them when I'd already stored them? What then? But we live and we learn, so we moved on. And then I found a broken shotgun, which is important for later, and I formed about 1,000,000 theories in my head as to how we were going to craft it back into a usable gun. I was expecting to see a blacksmith or some sort of anvil. We did not. After some more exploring, we come across a lovely little bar with a grand piano. A classy place that I definitely would not be able to afford to drink in. That is, if I wasn't turned away from the door for not owning enough stock or something. Anyway, after some investigating, we find some sheet music and used it at the piano. Chris can't read sheet music, obviously. Thankfully Rebecca is here now, and she played a piano once when she was 12 in a bar outside Dublin, so she's more than qualified.
Wait, what is that?
My interpretation is off a little.
Oh, that must be a different Moonlight Sonata. She needs to practice since it's been about 6 years, so Chris leaves her there, and honestly, I thought this choice would backfire, and we would come back later and find her zombified, but thankfully, no, you do have to do this. After a few more doors, we unlock the last door that needs a sword key, and thankfully, the game will tell you the key is now useless, and gives you the option to discard it, which is a very welcome feature and is a lot nicer to me than I thought the game would be. However, as soon as I go through the door, I recognise the layout from a BuzzFeed article, realise what's coming, and immediately turn around. Not today. Heading back upstairs, we enter another locked door and find the corpse of yet another member of Bravo team, Richard. He has another clip on him though, he won't need it anymore, it's fine. And beyond is a dark room where we can do the puzzle and then not pick up the stuff. Cool. Very fun. And another locked room with bloody handprints on the wall outside. Nice. Environmental storytelling has claimed yet another victim. Continuing through, we find the will of a researcher who details what has been happening to the staff of the mansion in a letter that was never sent. Then they're choosing a peaceful death rather than becoming the living dead. Very upsetting. I will be taking your shotgun shells and ink ribbons though. At this point, half of the puzzles I had come across were 4 shotgun shells, and I was slightly concerned that I skipped over the shotgun itself by accident, which would have been awful since the Beretta was proving to be god-awful against the zombies I'd come across so far. Next, we completely smashed the puzzle in the weird room with all the suits of armour. Those events were far too suspicious to not just cover with the movable statues, so we succeed and are rewarded with the Sun Crest, an item we have no idea what to do with yet, so it gets put in a magic box. A lot of this game so far, and into the future, is picking up an item, having no idea what to do with it, and then coming across a puzzle in 30 minutes in a completely different area that needs it. At this stage, we've covered the vast majority of rooms we can get to at this stage, so I have to face my fears and go back to the dog corridor. I enter the room and run at full speed, aware of what's coming. Halfway down the hall, a dog suddenly jumps through the window, scurrying millions, so we keep running and don't look back. And then another one jumps. Thankfully we manage to escape unscathed, and then we get a zoomed in look at Chris to make up for it. Looking good. In this corridor, there's a bathroom, with a bath full of this strange liquid which Chris offers to pull the plug off when prompted. Honestly, Chris, I don't think plunging bare skin into an unidentified green, dirty looking liquid when the living dead are literally walking among us is the best idea, let's be honest. And it's only a small key. The side door opens out onto an outside area where there are a few green herbs, but it's absolutely not worth it since the two dogs out there will hurt you before you can even reach them. Further down the hall that has some anxiety-inducing camera angles, which worked. There's a suspiciously empty room, leading to some sort of parlour with... Oh my god, that's a shotgun hanging on the wall. Let me just walk over and... Wait. This is too easy. If there's a perfectly good shotgun on the wall, why on earth did we get a broken one in the other room? Honestly, I completely figured this one out at the last second. When you go back into the smaller room, you can see the scrapes on the walls. Incredible puzzle, Capcom, very cool. So I leave the shotgun behind. Thankfully, the next corridor leads towards the storeroom again, so I can pick up the broken shotgun and clear the Indiana Jones puzzle. The shotgun is very satisfying. It's able to easily decapitate the normal zombies. The range at which you can do this is very generous, and it's incredibly satisfying to use. Watching them go down in one hit after the mountains of bullets you needed to use before is a great feeling. With our increased firepower, we move on to the next rooms, and come to the gallery. Immediately we are greeted with the sound of crows, which reminds me of the balcony debacle yet again, so I'm on edge already. Sound design working at its best yet again. The puzzle here is introduced with a painting titled From Cradle to Grave, with various other paintings showing a man at various stages of his life, with switches underneath. The solution is to press the switches in order of ascending age, starting with the newborn and ending with the person on their deathbed. If you mess up the order, the crows attack you and it's really embarrassing, and everyone saw and they're all talking about you behind your back. When you solve the puzzle, the final painting falls, revealing the star crest. Thankfully, as it is with all puzzles, the room resets if you exit and enter again, so you don't have to worry about the crows all the time. This was a really fun one, I really enjoyed it. At the end of the corridor is a route outside, showing a plaque with 4 slots, a little excerpt about the weather or something, showing that we need another 2 crests in order to open this door. There's also a dog, but we can shoot it, it's fine. At this point, I get confused, but then I remember, oh yeah, I pushed that statue off the upper floor of the dining room ages ago. I should go and look at that. And on the way I also remember we left Rebecca in the bar several weeks ago. Oops. So we go back to the dining room, killing some random enemies on the way, and pick up the blue jewel from the statue. When we get back to Rebecca, she's mastered the art of the piano, a modern day Mozart except better. Chris does that thing with the shotgun that I really like, I want to see him do that in real life, and a secret door opens, containing a gold emblem. Now I know an Indiana Jones puzzle when I see one, so I run back to the magic chest, pick up the normal emblem from earlier, and swap them over. And I was right, correctly predicted yet again. And on the trip, I used the blue jewel on the tiger statue, getting the 3rd crest. Placing the gold emblem in the same place as the original emblem was the logical thing to do, so we go and do that. Finally shutting off that god-awful loud grandfather clock, revealing the key we need to get into that bloody handprint, scary-looking room. Great. On entering said scary room, we are greeted by the biggest and scariest looking snake in all existence, which immediately tries to kill Chris. Now, in this encounter, you don't actually have to kill the snake, a fact I learned later. All you have to do is grab the final crest and then get out, but I didn't know this, so of course I pumped half the ammo I had directly into the snake's face and got poisoned. After the fight, the snake just leaves anyway, it doesn't even die, so don't bother. When you leave, if you got bit during the fight, you get poisoned, and Chris falls to his knees at the bottom of the steps. At this point, Rebecca enters the room, offering to go and get the serum. Now you actually get to play as Rebecca and go to the serum room and back. Honestly, I was really surprised that we got to play as a different character. I have no idea what you would actually be like in a combat situation, as Chris had already cleared out all the corridors at this point, but it's a nice change. This section is actually time sensitive, If you take too long, then Chris can actually die, and even if he doesn't, taking too long can affect Rebecca's fate in the ending. Clearing this part as quickly as possible is ideal in order to seal her fate. Anyway, Rebecca brings the serum back, and Chris is immediately back to normal. This must be some great stuff. At this point, we have all 4 crests, so we can go and open the outside door. The actual Xer on the plaque does not matter, as the crests will automatically go into the right slots, which is nice, but it's not like it was a particularly complicated puzzle. At this, we enter the courtyard. Make sure to pick up the crank on your way out. Outside there is a literal mountain of green, red and blue herbs. Oh, and also evil dogs, which won't attack you unless you run past them or make contact with them, so just walk slow and you'll be fine. Until you aren't. In the next room, we can use a newly acquired crank in order to lower the water levels, showing us the literal ugliest FMV ever conceived. Oh my god, why does it look like this? Although I'm glad there wasn't a giant water monster like I thought there would be. Passing over the new path, we get jump scared by some snakes dropping from the sky, and I genuinely jumped out of my seat. Don't let them bite you or you will get poisoned, and Rebecca will not help you. After passing through another zombie dog infested hallway, we enter the guardhouse. Why does the guardhouse need this demon statue in the hallway? Anyway, this area has even more zombies shuffling about, yet another green radioactive bath situation, and evil plants. I actually walked over to the hole in the ground, realised I needed to push the demon statue on top of it, and then walked over to it anyway. I don't know why I was shocked to have a plant tendril attack Chris. There's also a parlour room at the end of the initial corridor. Completely useless room with 2 giant spiders in there. Avoid at all costs. I don't even know what the deal with the pool table is, I just took the ink ribbon and ran. Down past the statue, we enter a large room where we can't see the other side. There's a dark green ambience, and it's just a generally creepy room. I left immediately. Down the hall, there's a locked door. Damn. Back to the creepy room. Around the corner is a room with an electronic lock. Press the buttons randomly until you either see a pattern or light all of the lights up. Pressing the corners is useful, I find. Inside the room is a bunch of shelves with a large amount of chemicals and some maths on one wall. There are also some colours and numbers on the other wall, and I hurriedly wrote all these down before examining the shelf to find that Chris can't handle chemicals. He didn't have any issues handling the chemical that killed that one plant. What's the difference here? Anyway, we leave again after I managed to gaslight myself that this was a Jill puzzle. Across the large room is a dark corner beside 2 locked doors. Amazing. And when you approach the corner, the camera changes so you can't see what's at the other end. Just gets better and better. Finally, Chris reaches the desk at the end, containing the key for a door we need. Just as the hornets escape from the giant nest hanging above. Thankfully, just turning around and running away is always a valid solution, so that is exactly what I chose to do. Live and learn. In the unlocked dorm, we find a diary from Henry Sarden detailing something called Plant 42. I'm sure we'll never find out what that means. In the attached ensuite bathroom, we find who I assume is Zombie Henry Sarden. Rest in peace, Henry Sarden, you never got to be famous. Pushing around the bookcases reveals a ladder to the basement, where we get a block sliding puzzle that was far too long for its own good, and then... Oh no, the room is flooded. Chris can't move fast in water, this isn't good. In an adjacent room, we see a giant set of roots. Huh. At least they're getting well fed. Back in the main room, I hesitated to take a drink or look at my phone or something when suddenly I saw the giant shark creature swim directly towards Chris, panicked and went back into the root room. Now I'm afraid. I make a break for it, only to realise, oh no, I left the key for this room back in the radioactive bath, oh no. Thankfully Chris only lost 1 leg on the way back, the babies can chew on that for a while. After getting the key, we can lower the water levels and enter the final room, where we get the key to the final dormitory, along with loads of waterlogged bullets. Great stuff. The gemfish are now flopping around. Get dried out, stinky. In the dorm this key opens, we can check a file that details the creation of a chemical called V-Chalt, and apparently creating chemicals is just adding numbers together, so now it makes even less sense that Chris has no idea how to work with them. Maybe he's just bad with maths. Filling up the bookcase opens up a secret passage, and when we pass through... Oh, there's Plant 42 and now it's picked up Chris, oh god, it's over. Thankfully, Rebecca happens to just be passing by and runs in. Chris throws an entire hardback 600-page book directly at Rebecca's head, and we take control of her yet again in order to make the chemical. The actual making of the chemical isn't that hard at all. You get 4 glass bottles to work with, and it tells you exactly what to do, so it's hard to mess it up. So Rebecca makes it, runs into the basement, and throws it directly into the plant roots that shrivel up and die immediately. Powerful. Soundtrack in this section is really cool too, very much approve of that. After this, the plant drops Chris, pretends to be dead for about a second, and then we have to have a boss fight. Fight itself isn't anything to write home about. It drops a blob of acid from the roof at times, and if you run around the edges of the room, the tendrils suddenly touch you. Easy peasy. We get the key from the fireplace and get out of there.
Oh! I can't believe it! Are you okay?
Yeah, so much for him. We got to the root of the problem.
Chris, you were just put into a life or death situation. I don't know if this is the time for bad puns. Also very interesting, you'd say you'd do the same for Rebecca, even though you can't read the label on a bottle, huh, Chris? At this, Rebecca will give you Richard's walkie-talkie radio, which I thought would have more use, but it only goes off like twice in the game, which I guess makes sense, since if it worked, the gang would have noped out of there hours ago. Also, Rebecca sets up shop inside the pharmaceutical room, offering free heals, which is very nice after a boss fight, although I don't think she stays after you return to the mansion. After heading out into the corridor, we hear a gunshot, turn the corner to find Wesker shooting at something that's off screen. Okay, and Wesker, that's an interesting musical theme you've got there. That sounds really safe and not at all foreboding. Wesker tells us that he lost Jill and that we need to complete our mission before all else. I don't know, Wesker, I just kinda want to go home and go to bed at this stage, I'm tired. He mentions the locked rooms back in the mansion, which, I know, that's where I was going. He moves deeper into the guardhouse to find clues, but like, I've already cleared it out, you're wasting your time, Wesker. Outside the guardhouse, Brad calls up our radio to tell us he knows we can't respond, but to give him a sign. Good to know. Oh, I really am glad I was able to sneak past those dogs outside without much damage. I'm sure glad the rest of the inside of the mansion is safe now. Let me just walk down this corridor and... Oh my god, what is that? This cutscene actually got me good. It popped up right when the camera angle was due to change, so a change in video was to be expected, but still, it got me. This cutscene introduces the hunter enemies, green creatures that hit like a truck, take at least 3 shots from a shotgun, and actually have an insta-kill chance, which I was unfortunate enough to find out later. Anyway, we run straight into the first room I can open, look at the Doom book that I definitely need, decide to just leave it there even though I have room, see more bullets for a different gun that I haven't found yet, and decide, now it's definitely the time to save. We enter the hallway outside the storeroom, which should be safe, and why is there a hunter here? Oh god, the mansion isn't safe anymore. Thankfully Wesker has been nice enough to leave us some more ammo and a first aid spray in this room. Maybe I misjudged his musical theme earlier, what a nice man. Travelling into the next corridor, I discovered that the hunters make a distinct clicking noise when they move, which is a good thing to look out for when entering a room to judge its safety level. Anyway, I waste tons of bullets mowing these folks down, and manage to open a door at the end of the hallway into a suspiciously large and empty room. Going over to the piano seemed like the most logical option, even though Chris can't do anything with it, and just as we approach... Oh god, it's a giant snake from earlier. The snake lunges at Chris, misses, and opens a giant hole in the floor, and now we're forced to kill it. This fight is tough. Even with the larger room and lack of obstructions, it's still really easy to get stuck in one place by the snake's tail, and if that happens, you're finished. I died a few times during this fight, and actually discovered that if the snake kills you, it swallows you whole. Neat. Thanks for the imagery, game. After my first attempt, I decided to try the other doors that this new key would open, which was actually just one other door, and I found a puzzle involving step pushing, turning off a light, and pulling a red jewel out of a decorative deer head. Classy. Also inside this room was a list of orders to the head of security, telling us that the research that was going on here was to produce biological weapons, and that the STARS team was lured here in order to provide actual combat data, and that the facility was to be destroyed afterwards. now we're getting to the reason. Anyway, bringing the red jewel back to the tiger room gives us the Colt Python, an incredibly powerful gun that can one-shot the majority of creatures in the game. Incredibly satisfying, but it doesn't have a large amount of ammo, so we need to conserve a little. I explored around a little to see if there was any more ammo lying around that I missed, returning to the eastern passage with the scurry camera angles. And now those angles have paid off. I am on edge. Thank you, Hunter. On my third attempt, the snake is finally vanquished. Why is it blue? We can jump down the hole into a dark enclosed room with a gravestone on it, which is a secret entrance to the basement. Now, why would they need to make this entrance a secret? It's not like anyone could ever get into this room, there's no doors. This basement section is the reason we should be glad this is just a normal director's cut version and not the DualShock version, because the music in this version for the area is creepy, nice to listen to, and generally fitting. The DualShock version is the audio equivalent of the Crank cutscene. Why did no one listen to this? After moving through the basement, we reach the kitchen. This place needs a deep clean, someone get Hell's Kitchen in here. Now, upon approaching the stairs at the back, we get a cutscene of something moving down the stairs towards us. And every time this has happened up until this point, a new enemy has been introduced, so I was expecting a new super zombie to come in and ruin us, but no, it's just Jeremy. Hi Jeremy. Bye Jeremy. The stairs are just a way to get back to the ground floor, so we can see the lift around the corner up to the first floor. Up here in a little cupboard room, we find a battery, which Chris informs us is for the lift outside in the courtyard. Honestly, thank you for that, because I probably wouldn't have worked that out myself for hours. Next, we can enter the large library, where we find a scrapbook containing newspaper clippings, detailing various incidents where innocents have been attacked and killed by the escaped creatures. Not nice, but why would you keep these in the mansion? This is evidence. What was the reason? Pushing the bookcase allows us to look out over a helipad, where we'll be able to make our escape from. We just need to find out how to get there, and how to let Brad know we're there. And now we have a concrete goal to work towards. In the next room, after solving the push the statue into this lit up section of the floor puzzle, we find a hidden desk containing an MO disc, which is sort of like a floppy disk, but it has a magnetic disc inside, very 90s. If that was made today, it would be an SD card or something. God, could you imagine? It would be so hard to find. Anyway, there are several of these items around, and they're very important to get if you want the best ending. If you don't care about the endings, feel free to skip them, but they're really not that hard at all to find. After this, I had to do some inventory management and make the long trek back and forward between item boxes in order to pick up the battery and the crank I would need for the puzzle. Eventually I manage it, and make my way to the area cleared by the waterfall. Honestly, I expected an item to be lying behind the water, but no, it's a ladder leading to the final areas of the game. Neat. Waterlogged. Descending this ladder leads into the underground caves, and the first thing we come across is a literal flamethrower hanging on the wall. Hell yeah. I pick it up and... oh, that looked like a switch moving. Oh, I'm not dealing with that, you're going back on the wall. So we don't get the flamethrower after all. Moving further in, we find a power generator with a roped off pit that we're not allowed to look into. Kinda reminds me of that place in the ending for Project 02. Thankfully Chris isn't a twin. Further investigation leads us to find Enrico lying injured at the dead end of a cave, looking slightly worse for wear. He strikes with a double crosser before getting shot in the head. Somehow when I saw this the first time, I thought he shot himself, but obviously he did not do that. The double crosser shot him. We run to find the culprit, find a hunter, and it decapitates Chris. Great. I haven't saved in a while. Time to do all that again. This time I came prepared with the python and discovered the hex crank. This will help me somehow, I'm sure. Now the previously saved tunnels are full of hunters, so we need to be careful. The hex crank allows us to spin these sections of tunnel that I was completely unaware of before, so we can move on. Through this room we see... oh, is that an Indiana Jones boulder? Oh great, I was right Chris, we move the move now. After dodging the boulder, it opens an additional path. After opening the next door, I instantly felt dread at the sudden change in music, and were greeted by a giant spider. Please, not this. Thankfully we can shoot the spider 3 times and it will literally explode into 1,000,000 pieces. Gross. Unfortunately, we did get poisoned during the fight, and the next door is covered in spider webs. Thankfully there's a flamethrower in the previous room we can use to open it up, and we continue on to find a safe room with a blue herb, the only one I ever needed. We need to put the flamethrower down in order to open the next door, so this was the only time we actually got to have fun with it. Beyond the corridor of snakes, we have another boulder we need to dodge to get a completely useless map and another ammo disc. There's also a secret room behind the spinning tunnel contraption that leads you to the second Doom book. Make sure you have a free inventory slot before you solve this, or else you'll need to solve it twice. Imagine doing that. Could not be me. After obtaining both Doom books, they can be checked in the inventory in order to open them up and obtain the Eagle and the Wolf medals, which can be used to drain and open up the Fountain Plaza thingy outside. Wait a minute, this isn't normal. What's going on? Where am I? Descending down, we enter the laboratory, where all of these creatures have originated. We find the third ammo disc and... oh my god, are these zombies naked? What the hell? Cover yourselves up, please. You'll catch your death. After a bit more exploration, we find a room containing a letter from John to Ada. Sounds familiar. I'm sure we won't run into her at any stage. Detailing the passwords necessary to enter the computer systems at the facility. The username is the name of the author, the password is Ada, and another password for the visual data room was written in runes. At the other end of the room is a painting, with various parts labelled using those same runes, including a tree, an apple, a man, and a woman. At this stage I had taken down all of the clues. I was using logic and pattern recognition in order to find out exactly what each word was referring to, and I managed to logic out the solution, which is mole. I then moved the bookcase to find another switch which showed the translation of the runes. At least it wasn't that difficult. Moving on to another room, we find a roll of slides and a computer system. They've only got one apparently. Activating the system enters a neat little segment where you go first person and type in the words you've discovered. After a cool boot up sequence with the umbrella logo and everything. Very incriminating. When you type in the correct info, Chris will do a fist bump and give you a thumbs up, which made me feel very validated. Thank you, Chris. After doing this, you open a small room in B3 which has 4 naked zombies to deal with, a fax detailing the wider effects of the data on the staff of the facility and how Umbrella doesn't care since it actually confirmed their hypotheses, and big boobs. More importantly, we find a passcode machine, one of 3 that allows us to use the ammo discs we picked up to get a code that allows us to open another door down here. Make sure to use them all if you want. Passcodes are all Bible quotes from the Book of Genesis, which is fun, I guess. Entering the data visual room, we can press a switch on the wall in order to move a pillar, revealing the key to the power room. But the real lore reveal in this room is the slides we picked up in the computer room. Using them on the projector reveals Umbrella's bioweapon report, which shows the weapons they created that we've come across so far, including one named Tyrant we've yet to encounter. At the end, we get to see a poorly photoshopped image, and is that Wesker? He's the bad guy? Oh my god, but he seems so trustworthy. We need to find this man and get him to explain right now. Entering the power room, we find the most nefarious block-pushing puzzle yet. I don't know why I found this so difficult, but after gassing Chris a total of once, I managed to get him into that air vent, where he crawled into a morgue, but he didn't really seem to care. I guess after everything he's seen so far, this is nothing. Inside here we can get some more magnum ammo and another passcode. Going south from here, we enter a room with lots of steam and pipes and... oh my god, what are you? This creature was not in the notes. You weren't anywhere before. What the hell is this? You scare me quite a lot actually. Thankfully they aren't too difficult to take out, but they do drop maggots after getting killed, which is disgusting. In this room we need to find a computer that allows the electricity to get connected to the lift outside, so make sure we do that before moving on. The next room has more creatures, but also has the final ammo disc machine we need, so we can finally get that locked door open. Going back to open that room opens up into a corridor where, oh Jill, thank god you're alive, but also not ideal that you've ended up in jail. Chris asked her to wait there, but it's not like she has any choice in the matter. She waits regardless. Moving to the end of the scurry pipe hallway allows the power to the lift to be activated, and so we do that, and then we save. Because whatever is at the end of that lift can't be good. After turning on the power, Rebecca runs up behind us, saying she saw Chris in the garden and just caught up, which is surprising as I've taken quite a long time to get here and solved all the puzzles. Why did it take you so long? At the bottom of the lift, we find Wesker pointing a gun at our heads, and he spills the beans. He complains that the virus was a failure, he lost his star members, and Rebecca is shocked as she is hearing all of this for the first time. And then Wesker proceeds to shoot her dead. Damn. I guess we aren't getting the best ending. Wesker takes Chris through to see the Tyrant, the ultimate life form. Now, I'm not an expert, but I don't know if having the ultimate life weapon with an exposed heart was the best decision. I don't know though, I'm not a biologist.
Chris? Stop it!
Chris laughs in Wesker's face, being very confident that the Tyrant is a failure, and Wesker throws a tantrum, releasing the Tyrant, which immediately turns on him, killing Wesker and throwing him across the room. The boss fight that follows is easy enough if you've brought enough ammo. Simply run and shoot. The Tyrant isn't particularly fast, so you should be fine at a distance. Eventually it will go down. Leaving the room, we find that Rebecca is completely fine, since she was wearing a bulletproof jacket, which explains the lack of blood. Chris makes a bad joke about Wesker being impaled and murdered, and they leave. Rebecca then proceeds to be very excited about the prospect of blowing up the manor, even though we don't have an escape route planned, but I guess the research being destroyed is a priority. Upon entering the main hallway again, the triggering system has now been activated. The mansion is set to explode, so we need to run and get Jill immediately before she gets blown up. The door is just open now apparently, and Chris and Jill share a moment before getting out of there. Jill walks around with Chris for literally one room and then runs ahead. Okay, what was the point? Running through the emergency exit door, Brad uses the radio yet again to let us know he has a fuel shortage and this is our last chance to escape. Better make it count. At the end of the corridor, there's a battery lying outside of the door, which is a great way for the game to ensure that you have an empty inventory slot before the ending sequence. Very impressive game, very impressive. After placing the battery, a 3-minute countdown starts which runs during the cutscene, and Rebecca catches up with us to deliver the best voice acting line I've ever heard in my life.
Look at those monsters!
Before Chris runs ahead to signal Brad. On the helipad, a conveniently placed box of signal flares allows us to signal Brad, who takes his sweet time circling the helipad before... Oh no, the Tyrant's still alive, and he's angry, and he's running straight towards Chris's head, oh god. Now, I didn't know this the first time, but the best strategy is to just run away from the Tyrant. Do not even attempt to shoot at it, which led to me dying on the first attempt with literally 40 seconds remaining. On the second attempt, I just ran, and at about 27 seconds remaining, Brad drops a rocket launcher from the helicopter, which I grabbed immediately and shot the Tyrant in the face, leading to a pretty cool freeze frame sequence before blowing it up and leaving behind what appeared to be pieces of a Morrowind character. After the final boss fight, we get the live action ending sequence. The helicopter flies away as the mansion explodes behind it. Chris and Jill are sitting safe, with Jill's resting on Chris's shoulder, Chris staring directly into my eyes, and Rebecca sleeping on the other side of the room, and they all fly away into the sunset. And then the credit sequence shows various scenes from the game while playing cool 90s anime ending music. Why did the actors only get their first names though? There's even scenes that I didn't see during my playthrough, like Rebecca shooting some hornets, and getting attacked by a hunter, which can happen if you take too long while getting the serum apparently. We're left with a shot of Chris overlooking what appears to be Raccoon City, showing the total playthrough time, number of saves, and telling us that we've solved this case completely. I don't know about that one. Resident Evil Timeline may not agree with you there. Overall, I greatly enjoyed Chris's campaign. I thought the action was well balanced with the puzzle solving. I thought there was just enough ammo and healing items littered around in order to provide a challenge but not be too frustrating. I had a really good time with it. I enjoyed the cheese as well. Overall, I think it was a great experience, and I would highly recommend playing for yourself if you're interested. Now, after playing through Chris, I decided to play through Jill's campaign to see the differences. The first few differences are immediately obvious. Barry is present in this campaign instead of Rebecca, and the intro scene is Jill, Wesker and Barry instead of Chris. When the first gunshot is heard, both Jill and Barry go to investigate. Jill starts out with the Beretta already in her inventory, and she has 8 slots instead of Chris's 6. The compromise here is that Jill actually moves slightly slower than Chris, and she has less health than him, so she can hold more weapons and ammo, but in exchange is slightly more squishy in combat. Also, the 2 extra slots aren't that useful when you're me and have to pick up literally everything you see. After Barry says every single thought he has out loud, Jill can go and fight the first zombie and find Kenneth's body, after which she returns to Barry, and they shoot another zombie in the dining hall. After returning to the main hall where they find Wesker missing, Barry gives Jill the lockpick since she's the master of unlocking. Jill gets a few strange titles in this playthrough. This lockpick allows Jill to skip the sword key and any small keys Chris needed to pick up, meaning a lot more of the mansion is open from the beginning. However, this does mean that certain rooms that held small keys before have no purpose in this playthrough, such as the eastern bathroom. After running through a few rooms, I noticed that there seemed to be less zombies than before. Other rooms that had 3 zombies now only have 2, the courtyard that had 3 dogs now only has 2, and so on. Jill is also able to obtain the shotgun without the use of the broken shotgun, meaning she can get it before she gets the armor key. However, she has to do this before she meets up with Barry again, leading to the most infamous cutscene in this game. I actually didn't get this on my first run through, but it's useful information to know.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Upon reaching the first floor of the main hall, Barry meets up with Jill to exchange information and gives us some acid rounds for a bazooka? What am I supposed to do with this? Also, it's best against living things. Does that count for the living dead, I wonder? The bazooka is actually a Jill exclusive weapon and can be found on Forrest's body out in the crow balcony. It has 3 different types of ammo that are useful in different situations, so this is yet another detail that makes Jill's campaign a slightly bit easier than Chris's. The puzzles in this campaign are basically identical to Chris's, so I was able to speed through the majority of them since I knew when and where to use the items I picked up. The piano puzzle is much easier as well, since Jill is actually a master piano player and could play the Moonlight Sonata from memory, so you can actually access the gold emblem instantly. The game plays identically up until you reach the snake corridor with Richard, who is actually still alive after being attacked by his personal demons. He warns Jill about the poisonous snake and mentions the serum. Jill runs to get the serum, so this section is the same, just with your normal playable character. After getting the serum, Richard dies anyway. Why did you make me do that, Richard? The decent thing to do would have been to survive, honestly. Also around this section, I noticed that quite a few shotgun shells had been replaced by the new bazooka ammo, so I realised the shotgun may not have been as viable as it was for Chris, but it was still quite good in the end, it's just the bazooka's better. Anyway, after this is the snake fight. I didn't fight back this time and still managed to get poisoned. After the fight, Jill collapses and a mysterious person, Barry, appears, and Jill wakes up in a serum room, which is nice because I didn't have to make that run again. And we move. The rest of the mansion and the majority of the guardhouse is identical to with Chris, the only major difference being Jill has to make the V-jolt herself, or you can choose not to make it and Barry will show up with a flamethrower to save Jill, but I chose to make the solution, meaning I had 2 empty glass bottles in the chest for the rest of time. Also, when traversing the basement, just before you enter the control room, the Neptune fish creature gets introduced with an FMV, which did scare me a bit because I wasn't expecting it, and that was neat. It's a little difference, keeping me on my toes. Wesker also has his reasons for running off on his own. Okay, Wesker, you do that. During the giant snake fight, I actually only died once, thank you acid rounds, and before Jill jumps down the hole, Barry shows up with the world's worst rope, since it snaps just after Jill goes down it. You can actually wait around for Barry to bring a new one, which allows you to travel back up through the hole, saving a lot of time on round trips to the basement and that section of the first floor. The rest of the upper floor and the courtyard plays out the same until we reach the tunnels, where there are no flamethrowers, and we meet Barry. Barry asks if you want to go together, and if you want him to lead the way. These questions are important for the ending, since if you answer wrongly, you can seal his fate and kill him accidentally. I wanted to go together, and wanted to take the lead, since I wanted him to watch my back. And do that he did, because a hunter approaches from behind down a tunnel, and Barry takes it out. Nice one. I love you. We enter Enrico's room, and he tells us about a traitor within stars before getting shot again. This man cannot catch a break, oh my god. The rest of the tunnels and the laboratory play out the same. Jill does a finger gun instead of a fist bump on the computer, which is... it's okay, I guess. Speaking to Chris from his jail cell, he seems very content in his situation, honestly. I don't think he would have minded too much if he stayed down there for a little while longer, honestly. After riding down the lift, we find Wesker, who is holding Barry's family hostage in order for his compliance. Barry, I can't believe this. I thought what we had was special. What do you mean you have a wife? Wesker reveals his plans, including telling Jill that he doesn't actually have Barry's family hostage, after which Barry comes back and knocks Wesker out. But then we go in to see the Tyrant, and Barry decided to drain the tank so it can be killed? It was great intentions, I suppose, but now we have to have a boss fight. Thanks, Barry. The fight's actually so much easier with the bazooka. It only took 3 shots to take it out. Nice. Barry only has a slight concussion from when the ultimate life form knocked him halfway across the room, so maybe it actually was a failure. The final sequence plays out almost identically, except it's Wesker himself that has activated the triggering system, since he's alive in this route. We get Chris an escape, and he makes a ladies first joke in the final corridor. Excuse me? Is this the time? Anyway, the final boss is exactly the same, except when Brad drops the rocket launcher, he says that Jill is their Amazon.
It's coming! Jill! Kill that monster! You're our Amazon, Jill!
Okay. What does this mean? The final cutscene is the same as before, except instead of Rebecca sleeping, we get Barry checking his gun. And the credit sequence is almost exclusively made up of scenes that I didn't see in my playthrough, which is nice, because I get to see them now. Also, at the end of each playthrough, you get a special key, which can open up a costume change room. There are other rewards as well, but you have to complete the playthrough in a certain amount of time, and I did not clear those. And that was both campaigns of the original Resident Evil Director's Cut. Maybe someday I'll come back and play the remake version and see how it compares to the original, but for now, that was my experience. I really enjoyed both playthroughs. It's nice to see the differences between them, no matter how small they may be, and I can't wait to play through the rest of the series, since I can't say I know much about the other games, except for 6 onwards, honestly. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment. I really enjoyed this process, but it truly was a lot of work and effort, and I would really appreciate the feedback. But regardless, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.